Hello, Lionel Racing. Welcome to the first ever Hey Lionel Racing video show here live. I'm in Concord, North Carolina, and my name is Matt Kentfield, and I am the content marketing manager for Lionel Racing. And joined today by Lionel CEO Howard Hitchcock, and I'm in my dining room here in Concord. Howard, how about you? Where are you today?
And this is my new working environment. So getting used to working from home, not something I've ever strived to do. I like being around the folks that make things happen at Lionel and Lionel Racing. And so it's a bit of a challenge for everybody, but I have to say the team really pulled together very, very well, and came together in a very short period of time to get everybody remote and working and keeping the company functional. So that's been awesome.
And, you know, Howard, we are at Lionel Racing, Lionel Trains. We're in the same boat as every business, every individual. We're coming to you from our homes today, just like you're probably watching from your home today. And normally you'd be at school or work or anywhere else other than your home, probably at 2 o'clock Eastern on a Thursday afternoon. But this is just our new normal. So we were talking just before we went live. During this show here today, folks, you might hear a dog bark. The garbage man might come, right, Howard? The garbage man might come this afternoon. But if that happens, just understand, this is just kind of how we're navigating through these days. And we're going to go over a little bit more in just a little bit about how, as a business, we're navigating this COVID-19. But, Howard, obviously, like you just touched on, we are trying to find our way through this, and we have plans and everything like that, but everything's a fluid situation, and we certainly empathize with every American that's tuning in right now, and everyone throughout the world, really, this is affecting.
Yeah, no, I mean, this is, and I used this statement in a conversation I had with the entire staff earlier this week. This is truly an unprecedented situation that, to be honest with you, there's no playbook, right? There's no business playbook that has the rules on how you address this, survive this, get through this, function through this, and what impact is really going to happen. And long term, we're hopeful, but we don't know how long this is going to last. We don't know what impact it's going to have long term on the economy, what impact it's going to have long term on our sport, consumer psyche. So there's a lot of factors that are going into a lot of decisions being made every day. And, for the, not the last 2 or 3 days, I think it feels like it's slowed down a little bit because we've kind of settled into this sort of reality that we're going to be home for at least a month, right? And that's kind of where we're at right now. Prior to that, we were making decisions, and those decisions were being challenged 2 hours after you made them. And so you kept making new decisions that you kind of felt like was the right thing, and it just kept, other factors kept changing on you, which made it very, very, very hard. You're reinventing ways to do things. Approvals. When you think about sample approvals, most of the times the teams, the sponsors, licensors are all expecting to get physical samples to look at, to color match, to make sure things are in the right location, to make sure the quality and accuracy is there. And all of these companies have had to reinvent themselves in how they do that, how they're comfortable with evaluating a sample, looking at it, how we're communicating with them. So, you really, certainly, more importantly, people's lives are truly disrupted here. There's a lot of folks that are ill, a lot of folks that are scared, and that's obviously the most important thing. But as business, everyone is trying to figure out, to your point, how do we keep these things going so that there is some normalcy, and there is some normalcy when we come out of this, and whenever that time is. And so that's been a lot of the focus really over the past couple of weeks for myself and my senior team. The immediate needs, obviously, of keeping the company operational. The IT team has done an awesome job of doing that for us, and we're able to function here. My desk phone is actually sitting on my home desk, and the technology is really amazing. It's plugged into my internet, yet it thinks it's part of the office phone system. So it's really cool that that's the way it works. And it's been great to be able to be as functional. I can't imagine if this were to have happened 10 years ago, the difference, to be honest.
Yeah, it's truly an unbelievable time that we live in. But like you said, our world has kind of closed a little bit because of social media, because of networking and everything like that, we're able to still do our jobs to the best of our ability and as much as we can, on a day-to-day basis, even when we're doing it remotely. But from NASCAR to team partners and everything like that, this COVID-19 has affected every industry, but certainly the ones that we deal with on a day-to-day basis as well.
Right, and we've really been watching it. I think we're going to touch on this a little bit later, but we've really been paying attention to this since early December, and that really is because it affected China first, and obviously our products are made there, and so we're going on now really the fifth. Actually, we're entering the 6th month of really having some impact as a result of this. Obviously, it's a lot more personal now. It's closer and obviously affecting homeland, and that's makes a very different situation. But this has been a long-term thing for us here at Lionel since early December.
You just led us into that first point, Howard. Let's talk about our factory over in China. They, like you mentioned, several months back, it was affecting them certainly on a national level throughout China. But just kind of let our collectors and fans know what the current status is of our our factory over in China, and the safety of the employees over there, as well as the products that are coming from overseas to the United States and eventually getting to the customers.
Yeah, sure. So, with heading into Daytona, so coming out of the fourth quarter and heading into Daytona, it's typically a very, very busy time for us. And as most of our hardcore collectors know, there's this event that happens in China every year called Chinese New Year, which is the lunar calendar New Year. Unlike our New Year, which is January 1st every year, it moves around. And so depending on the lunar calendar, it kind of falls in different spaces. It can be rather early, heading into January, or it can fall fairly late into February. This year, it kind of fell right around the Daytona race itself, a little bit in front of the Daytona race itself. And so it kind of limited the ability for us to deliver products to Daytona. We had a shorter window than we typically would have had, I guess is the best way to say it. On top of that, of course, we had the change in the Chevy Camaro for the 2020 season at the Cup level. And so we were working on new tooling and had, right before Chinese New Year, early December, had released the tooling to production, which means we got through the trial shots, we got approval from GM, they had seen the cars, we had some samples made, and they tweaked the mold. When we make new molds, it's important to know that you don't just cut a mold and put it up and have it run. There's several weeks of fine-tuning that mold so it actually functions, and the parts that it produces, you can actually build a viable product from. So we'd gotten through that process. It was probably mid-December when that was kind of happening. We had heard that this COVID-19 thing had started to emerge in the Wuhan area. Really didn't affect production at that point because the factory workers were already at the factory. We were really gearing up toward the Chinese New Year shutdown. And so then obviously we go through Chinese New Year, or the factory workers start to leave. Typically they start to leave about a week before the actual celebration to try to get back to where they live in the country. Migrant workers kind of move around several hours on train rides. And then that's when the thing really started to peak. China started making some rules around celebrations and limiting groups and gatherings, which, you're talking a several thousand-year-old tradition that they're sort of preempting. So obviously a very serious situation. And then the ultimate return to the factories was delayed by several weeks. So when that started to happen, we were, of course, in touch with all of our factories on both sides of the business, the train and the cars. For this conversation, the car factory, is one of the largest toy manufacturers in all of the world. This factory is truly a small city of people. And when you imagine that many people together, it obviously brings up a lot of risks because putting people in small places together, in buildings and office environments, in movie theaters, in whatever, that poses the risk of spread. So the government was very, very clear with the Chinese factories, and they made them stay shut down for an extended period of time. And then what happened is, as the government decided that they would start to reboot the economy, they put a lot of the pressure on the individual factory owners to make sure that they weren't allowing a spread or a re-outbreak. And so the way they did that is they basically made the factory owners commit to say, if something happens at my factory, one, I understand I'm going to be fully shut down. Two, I understand that whatever cost it takes to fix this is their responsibility. And then three, they had to create provisions to make sure it was a safe work environment. So what our factory in particular did is they're very large, and so they had the space to do this. They brought workers into the factory and then quarantined them as they were coming in, taking temperatures, making sure there was no signs of illness. They quarantined those workers for 14 days before they could work into the kind of working area of the factory. And when I'm saying it's a small city, it literally is the size of a small town. And so they were on the front side of the campus where the main gates are, is where they held the workers for 14 days. And as they got through 14 days of symptom-free situations, they then moved those workers into other parts of the facility, which is where they actually would make product. There were very strict rules for the workers. They can't intermingle. They can't go beyond certain spaces. So basically, once you were clean and into a quarantine clean area, then you had to stay in that quarantine clean area. And these people's livelihoods depend on having a job. And so obviously, with the threat of not being able to come back in if they were to leave, the people abide by it, right? Because they don't want to see the spread either. They want to get back to normal and having a functional thing. So from that perspective, that's what the factory did to kind of get itself back up and running. And of course, that takes time and is slow. And so where we normally would see a couple week ramp up on Chinese New Year, we've obviously seen a much longer tail to that. The good news is our factory is running and output. We have, this is the fourth week in a row where we've had at least a small container head out of the factory. So we are getting the materials we need. We have line workers there. Decorating things. The schedule, we get a weekly schedule. We have seen what we call pull-ups, which means the factory had given us a one date, and those cars are actually advancing on the schedule to ship sooner. So all indications are things are moving very, very well. We're in daily contact with, of course, all of our factories to really understand how things are going. The good news I can say is all of our factories have been breakout free. So there hasn't been any sort of a reoccurrence. Obviously concerned about the product when it gets here and its safety. Everything I have read, everything that's been issued by the World Health Organization, the CDC, indicates that the virus will not live on surfaces for the time period that our product goes. So even if there was a situation where that product may somehow have been in contact with somebody, which I doubt because the factories have to remain breakout free, otherwise they would be shut down. In that rare possibility, these products basically take about 5 weeks to get even to our door. So from the time they're loaded onto the container to the time they go on the boat to the time they get to the port here, picked up by a truck, delivered to us, and then handled through our facility is about 5 weeks. And no one has reported that this virus will live that period of time. So we're very, very confident that in those situations that the product is obviously safe. Not to mention people typically wear masks and gloves anyway in those environments when they're working with the products. They do try to create sort of a clean room would be a little bit too advanced for this. There are parts of the factory that are clean where they make circuit boards and stuff like that. But generally speaking, they wear ball caps or hair nets to keep hair from falling out onto the product. Like not quite food standards, but certainly standards that are applicable to a collectible type product.
That's really good information, certainly to know there. And what I want to stress to the folks that are watching here today, if you haven't already, shoot us a message over in the YouTube chat just to the side of the window that you're watching us right now with hashtag Hey Lionel Racing, and we'll do the best that we can to get to your questions during this broadcast. But just know if this is well received and we have a good time doing it, and Howard will be on with us again, or if we have a good enough time, maybe we'll do another one or two of these shows here over the next few weeks. But one of the questions that we had in advance of today's show, we asked on social media using hashtag Hey Lionel Racing. DiecastMan95 on Twitter shot us a note the other day asking, if I order a diecast that is already in stock, is it going to be delayed? Now, Howard, we did post something on social media and throughout our Lionel Racing website and everything like that, just saying that our warehouse is currently in a delay situation. So just maybe you can expand a little bit on what domestically at our warehouse in North Carolina, how we are addressing things and what the current status is as far as shipments coming in and out of our warehouse.
Yeah, certainly. So we, again, as part of the last really 14 days, we've had some advancing situations here. We're located in Concord, North Carolina, right next to the Speedway, for those of you who haven't visited us. And we're technically in Cabarrus County. Mecklenburg County is next door to us. Literally, you probably could throw a baseball from parts of our property into Mecklenburg County. So we're very, very close to the county line. Mecklenburg County is where Charlotte is. Charlotte kind of is, unfortunately for North Carolina, the epicenter of our outbreaks, having approximately 25% to 30% of the total last time I looked. So Mecklenburg County was the first county to put a lockdown in place, and some of our workers work in Mecklenburg County. A few days later, Cabarrus County, the county that we reside in, followed, and then followed a couple days later by the governor of North Carolina, who put a statewide shutdown on non-essential businesses. I know this is going to come as a surprise to a lot of folks because diecast is very important to you guys. Unfortunately, we're not classified as an essential product. And so what that means is we have the ability to basically maintain very essential basic operations. And what that means is essentially to protect inventory value, the business itself, receive things as they come in, because the trucking companies are still allowed to operate. So all of the interstate trucking is still happening. Obviously, your FedExes, your UPSs, US Mail, all those type of things are still happening. So we have to have a very, very skeleton crew that's capable of handling those things. So we do that for really primarily the health and safety of our employees first and foremost, which has been a lot of the factors behind a lot of the decisions we've had to make. There's been a lot of tough conversations going on as obviously businesses are dealing with a lot of things. But the health and well-being of our employees has always been the first and foremost in all of our conversations. We do have, like I said, a handful of people that are there. They're practicing social distancing. We have provided gloves and masks for anybody that have to be on site. We have protocol for people who need to visit the office for certain things. There are certain tasks that you do need the office for. Getting specifically to the products, yes, we are in a delayed situation. We are not producing on the train side. We're not producing our Made in the USA product at this point. We are, receiving in products as they come in. We'll do our best with the skeleton crew to get out a handful of products if we can, so long as the services, FedEx and UPS, continue to do that, to provide the service. At this point, they are. But the priority one is to secure the inventory, to secure the building, to get inventory into the building and protect it. And then whatever residual efforts they can do, they will do. Now, that said, I can tell you that if you place your pre-orders, all of the mechanics behind the business are going on with the normal pre-orders. If you place an order, we will get to that order from our inventory system. If you do it on our RCCA store, or it takes it out of the inventory and attributes it to your order, so it will be held. We will get it out the door. There is a delay, unfortunately. Just please deal with us. Be patient. But your stuff will come out.
That's great information, and we're going to switch gears just a little bit, maybe just a half step into how the COVID-19 situation is affecting our NASCAR Authentics line. And of course, Howard mentioned the pre-order and the in-stock things of our Elite and ARC model die-cast out of our warehouse. But of course, a lot of fans are huge collectors of NASCAR Authentics die-cast. And Sean on Facebook asked how COVID-19 and then difficult navigation from our standpoint, as well as our mass retail partners, how is COVID-19 affecting NASCAR Authentics distribution to Walmart and Target stores?
Right. So the one thing about NASCAR Authentics, because it is distributed through the mass channels, they consume huge quantities of this product, and because of the timing of this whole situation, we always have a strategy where we ramp up in inventory for pre-Chinese New Year. And so the good news is when all of this started to occur in China, we were actually sitting on a very healthy stockpile of inventory that we had built so that we could maintain supply and continue to ship into retailers as the product demand was needed. And so the good news, our starting point was good. And so then with that, we feed in the inventory that goes into the mass retailers, and had been right up until our physical inventory, which was for the racing side was 2.5 weeks ago. And so prior to our physical inventory, after our quarter one or near the end of our quarter one, which is where it makes the most sense for us to do our physical inventory in our calendar year, the mass retailers are communicated to and know that that is coming up on us, right? So they instead, because they feed us orders on a weekly basis, the mass retailer actually bulks up a little bit themselves. So they kind of took in a little bit extra a few weeks back into their warehouse and distribution centers, or what we'll call DCs, and had that sitting there. And so over the course of the last 2 weeks, they've really been feeding off of that to feed down to their stores. Now, obviously, with a nationwide sort of stay at home or encouragement to stay at home, we are seeing less traffic flow through the retailers. This week probably has been the biggest amount of traffic difference that we've seen. I think where people have really kind of bulked up on their supplies and are kind of at a point where, okay, they're settling in, and we're going to see sort of this reduced level of traffic going through the stores. So the good news is we had plenty of product. We've pumped in product into the marketplace, and our skeleton crew will do their very best to feed the weekly orders that come from these mass major retailers. So we believe with the reduced demand pulling through, and that's really how the whole system is driven. Consumers go into the store, they buy products off the peg. That triggers an order, a fulfillment order to the distribution center or the DC. They, in turn, send that product to the individual retail store. And then when the DCs get diminished, that triggers an order back to us from a person called the replenishment manager at the individual retailer, whether that be Target, Walmart, or a smaller regional store. And so then we take those on a weekly basis, those replenishment orders, build that out into an order and ship the product to the DCs as replacements. So that is how the process kind of works. We think the pipeline is very full based on what we can see through the point of sale systems at both Target and Walmart, and feel confident that at least at present time, there is no disruption in the supply chain.
And you actually answered Calvin's question that he asked us on Facebook yesterday, wondering why sometimes his store doesn't get NASCAR Authentics waves until months after other stores, if that store gets it at all, when there's other stores maybe in their state or in their region that get them more quickly. That you just pretty much explained, Howard, how that process works, but just maybe just reiterate to the folks about how when we release it on the fix, the latest wave, and show off all the cool cars that are coming to stores, and we always say coming to a store near you soon, just how that process works and whether it, how it gets to their stores, and maybe sometimes why it doesn't get to their stores.
Sure. So, within a chain, say Target or Walmart, we're distributed through so many of the doors. So if they have, hypothetically, if they have 4,500 doors, we might be in, 4,000 of those doors. And within those stores, there's what they call A, B, C, and D doors. And that's really ranked on our category, or the toy category. And so in A store, if you've gone in different Walmarts, you can tell what an A store is. They've got more aisles, they've got more depth of product assortment. You go into a B store, it's not quite the A, but it's not like a really small store. So first of all, when we build a wave, we build only so many pieces or so many cases. And then it's our managers, our replenishment manager internally, their responsibility to feed varying waves of product to the retailers as demand comes in. So I explained how demand comes in. People go to the store, they buy an item off the peg, that triggers a reorder to the distribution center or the DC. The DC then fills that to the individual store, and then the DC requests more inventory from the supplier, who is us. So as we have product, we send that product to the different DCs and we share that product. So let's say wave 5, perhaps, might have gone, a third to Walmart, 2/3 to Target, or 2/3 to Walmart, 1/3 to Target, whatever. And so at the moment that your individual store required product, that wave may or may not have been in the distribution centers for Target or Walmart. And so that's why you might see like a wave skipped at your store. You might wind up with wave 3, and then all of a sudden wave 6 comes in, and you're like, well, what happened to 4 and 5? Well, 4 and 5 were pushed through the system. It's your store just maybe didn't have the demand trigger at the time that the DC had the actual product to send it to you. So really, when we talk about coming to a store near you, we're pumping that into the DCs. At that point, we sort of lose control of what actually gets pushed into the retail channel. The distribution center or the individual customers really take control of it from that point and allocate that good. Now, one thing that you will want to know is the retailers see our item, even though we classify it as wave 1, wave 2, wave 3, wave 4, and each one of those little UPCs is loaded into the point of sale system at the retailer. That retailer really sees each wave case as the same exact SKU. They don't differentiate between what wave 1 is, wave 2 is, and wave 3 is. It's just item ABC 1, 2, 3 to them. And so when there's somebody physically handling the product and sending it out, because we send in pallets of product, they're just grabbing whatever's there. It's all the same to them. And so they're not really looking at what is wave 1, what is wave 2. Oh, that store got wave 1 the last time, so we're going to make sure they get wave 2 this time. It's just, products there, products in an inventory holding position. They then grab that product and fill an order. And so it's a widget to them. And so there isn't really the ability for the DC to kind of control each store getting its own different wave mix. It kind of happens randomly.
Got it. And I'll tell you what, Howard, we get that question just about every week in some way, shape, or form, just about how NASCAR Authentics get to their stores and everything like that. And we do encourage you, if your NASCAR Authentics product hasn't been replenished in a while, talk to a store manager. Maybe they can reach out to the distribution center and say, hey, we've got some fans out here that want some cars. And, hopefully it'll get to the right ears and the right buttons will be pushed for your stores to get more NASCAR Authentics on the shelves. And
yeah, there are triggers. I mean, that's the thing. You'll say, like, some people might be saying, yeah, but when I walk in, there's only 2 or 3 on the peg. There are triggers by store that actually trigger that order to happen systematically. And the other thing you have to keep in mind, and this is kind of tough, but if things are misplaced on a peg, or if there has been lost for some reason, the system still thinks that product is there. So actually bringing it to his attention actually might help trigger that situation.
Absolutely. And we see a lot of folks over in our chat here on YouTube. Please play nice with one another. I mean, we're just all die-cast fans at heart and NASCAR fans. We just want to, give you folks some information about where we are with Lionel Racing and, talk shop for a little bit. So please just be nice to one another, all right? We don't want to ban anybody. We want everybody to just have a good time and appreciate the information that you're getting from us right now. And we see a lot of people asking as well about NASCAR Authentics 1/64 scale Wave 2. We showed off Wave 1 just a couple of weeks ago on the Fix. And normally it would be, a few weeks later, we would start showing the next wave, which would be Wave 2 for 2020. And I just want to let everybody know that Wave 2 is still on schedule, even with COVID-19 and all the limitations and restrictions. It's still on schedule for us to show off and start distributing to the distribution centers as it was, even if this was not our current situation with COVID-19. So just be patient. There's still a few weeks left before those cars will actually be received by Lionel Racing and then sent back out to the mass retailer. So I know you people are excited for Wave 2, and we're excited to show it to you. We just can't yet because it's not here yet. So as soon as it is, we will show it off to you, and your stores will start getting it soon thereafter. And Howard, just real quick, we also had Islo Racing Network on our chat asking about the 187 scale NASCAR Authentics cars. It wants to know if those are going to be continued into 2020. So I just wanted to tee you up with that one and let ISLO Racing Network know what the current status of 187 scales are.
Yeah, right now, the 187 scales are scheduled to continue to be at both Target and Walmart. We have the blind bag and the 2-pack, depending on which store you shop. But those are still planned to be there, and we'll through 2020. We'll see what happens beyond that, but that's kind of where we're at.
And finally, just on the COVID-19 situation, our RCCA Members Appreciation Event. It happens around the All-Star Race every May. And of course, with everything going on in the world right now, Howard, we sent out an email to members, RCCA members, just about a week ago now. And for those who maybe didn't get that email or something like that, if you don't mind, just divulging information about what the current status, like Joy on Facebook asked about the May event in its current status.
Yeah, it's an event that we, Thomas and I actually were there year one when we first started to do this, and kind of was an idea that spun out of, how do we engage fans and how do we kind of create some unique event, and have worked and pulled it together, and how it's evolved has been really awesome to see. We love it. The staff loves working it and being part of it, seeing everybody. It's as much a social thing as it is a sort of a work function for us. Unfortunately, at this point, though, there's a lot of uncertainty, as you kind of indicated. We took a look at the situation and not really knowing how the NASCAR schedule is going to be impacted, if it's going to continue to be impacted further than what has already been changed. Will there be an all-star race? Is there the same typical schedule that we've seen at an all-star race? Just a lot of questions. And so for that purpose, we made the decision to cancel the event for May. We are not at this point rescheduling it for any given date. Again, really because we don't know what we don't know. We are leaving it open as a possibility for this year if an event date sort of works and there's the ability operationally to pull it off. We will certainly consider having an event later in the year. But at present time, the May event is canceled, unfortunately. It is not at this point rescheduled. All we can say at this point is we're looking forward to 2021.
Absolutely. And again, let's change gears just a little bit. The hot topic in NASCAR these days, of course, in addition to finding out when cars are going to be on the racetrack again, so we can all enjoy a weekend of NASCAR competition. We're kind of getting that fixed right now through iRacing. Who would have thunk that here we are in April now that the only live sporting event that is on television right now would be I'm not going to call it a video game, so nobody jump down my throat for calling it a video game. It's a motorsport simulation. I understand. I got to rig myself over in the garage just on the other side of this wall right here. So I'm with you, people. But iRacing, it's the latest craze in motorsports, and there was even some dirt racing on Fox Sports last night, and there's even more coming up this weekend. And this iRacing thing has kind of opened up a new avenue for Lionel Racing in lieu of having actual cars on the racetrack. There are virtual cars on the racetrack, and that's opened up some doors for us.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we've all known about iRacing for some time, and really probably a couple of years back when William Byron was coming up into the sport. And I was watching an interview a couple nights ago with him where he was talking about locally here. He was talking about how he kind of got inspired to get into iRacing because that's how Dale Jr. kind of did some practice and sort of got to some familiarity with the track and different tracks when testing wasn't available. And so he was really kind of the first of his kind that kind of came through the ranks through iRacing. And so that was a big topic of conversation, died down a little bit. And here we sit with really no sports, no physical, actual live sports going on. There's a lot of classics being played and a lot of the best ofs, recapping the best games and stuff, but nothing kind of current. The cool part about, of course, this is NASCAR is really leading the way in esports. It's a completely new area of interest. And the awesome part for us is we have real drivers piloting these cars. So this is not, while it's a simulator, and it's a system that anybody can really buy into and play. We actually have top caliber athletes actually piloting the digital versions of cars. And not only are they the active drivers, but it also brings the ability for people who have stepped out of the sport, like Dale Jr., to come back and actually race on a completely different, completely familiar yet different sort of platform that really kind of equals the field in a lot of ways, right? It's not about the amount of resources you have as a team or as an OEM or whatever, but it's really about your skill set with the digital space. And, there's a new batch of drivers who you seriously consider as the front runners because of their familiarity with this system. And so, the simulations are very, very cool. They've been well received by the fans. People are excited to have some form of the sport. Honestly, I think it's a great thing for our sport. It keeps momentum. It keeps something going on. We actually get to see a slightly different side of some of these drivers. I think some of the commentating, especially with Clint Boyer, has been a lot of fun. And yes, there is some new opportunities for us. We have we'll call them fantasy cars, digital cars that we have the ability to offer and make, such as Dale Jr.'s car. We can do new race wins, different things that happen on the virtual track. So it is a completely different space. It's an opportunity. I think it's a great thing overall for the sport, first and foremost, and most importantly, it keeps NASCAR kind of alive, auto racing alive, in this kind of very strange period in our history, and does give us some opportunities to make some cars that we may not have otherwise had. So for us, it's kind of the same thing. It comes to us as a digital file. We turn it into a model and then make that. So the cars are as real to us as any other car. And certainly to the fans. Fans seem to be really enjoying it and really getting behind the digital aspect of it.
Like you said, it's just like the process to make one of these diecast is pretty much the exact same as it would be if it was a real race win or a real car that was on track in a NASCAR event every Sunday. The same approvals, and sometimes it's a little bit more of a challenge because you're talking virtual sponsors, you're talking virtual racetracks, so it's not quite the same, but it is very much the same process.
No, it's absolutely the same process. In fact, I actually signed a contract this morning that allows us the rights to do a car. So, it is. I mean, for us, from that perspective, executionally, it's really exactly the same as any other thing. I mean, when we get a car, we don't need to see the physical car. We get an art file, and it's digital, and so that's how we kind of do what we do. So for us, there's really no difference in bringing things to life. It's only the contractual pieces of it that just have to be figured out that are a little bit unique. But the awesome part is everybody has gotten behind it, from NASCAR themselves and the licensing group there, who's helped pull some things together for us, to the teams, the drivers, sponsors, OEMs. Everyone's on board. So we're super excited about it, and you will certainly see some more cars from Lionel Racing tied to this.
Absolutely. And as a matter of fact, Cameron Tracy on Twitter asked us, hey, Lionel Racing, has there been any discussion about producing the Timmy Hill roof claim Toyota, the iRacing car that he won at the virtual Texas Motor Speedway just this past Sunday? And Cameron, I'll answer that one for you. Yes, there were discussions. As a matter of fact, first thing Monday morning, our team internally was in touch with MBM Motorsports, Timmy Hill's team, about perhaps offering that car, and conversations were had. I'm not a betting guy, but I would say that I would check back to Lionel Racing and your dealers as well, maybe as early as Friday, tomorrow. I think you might be pleasantly surprised that there may be a Timmy Hill iRacing diecast on the horizon there. I think I might have even sprung that on Howard there. I don't even know if he knew that we were doing that, but
No. In fact, actually, that was the contract I was referring to.
There you go.
So I'm sure we'll see that, as well as many
Good
others.
deal. Well, Cameron, that answers your question about Timmy Hill, and All right, folks. We're gonna wrap things up here for this episode. Like I said, we know that there's lots of other comments. There's a bunch of other topics that you want to hear from Lionel Racing. Ones that Howard will certainly be able to address. We might even get the head of RCCA, the club, Thomas DuBois, and obviously you're used to him on the fix, and Alex Pullman also. You're used to seeing her on the fix every week, and of course we're not quite able to do the fix. Maybe we'll figure out a way to do one virtually here coming up here pretty soon. But the faces that you're used to seeing, we'll try to get them on every once in a while just to answer some questions and kind of let you know what's going on in the diecast world. But obviously we're here to talk diecast, Howard, and it's been great getting this information out there. Hopefully everybody's learned something for today's episode. We're about an hour into it now, but hopefully the information was useful for the folks, and they kind of understand how we're navigating things a little bit. And most importantly, even more than in diecast, as much as we love NASCAR and the collectible world and everything like that, we all just need to be safe. We all need to be healthy so that when cars do get back on track and everything's back to our normal world again, it'll be sooner rather than later.
Yes, no, for sure. That is at this point, really, that is the most important thing, right? So the health, safety, well-being of every individual, their families, obviously is first and foremost in our mind. We do truly love the sport and want to see it get back to going as quickly as we can and do our part to be good partners in that space. But in order to do that, everybody needs to take this seriously. It is very serious. Remain at home and let's have this thing move past us and take care of yourselves. And we will hopefully see everybody very, very soon. So I've enjoyed getting to speak with everybody. Hopefully we'll do it again. But welcome to our new office reality. And this is what it is. But at least stuff's going on in the background. Take care. Be safe. It's been fun.
Absolutely. Well, that says just about everything there. Folks, keep using hashtag #HeyLionelRacing on social media. We will see your questions, and we will definitely promote whenever the next episode of our live broadcast will be. We'll get to as many questions as we can then, and any further ones thereafter. But as Howard said, everybody stay safe, be kind to one another, and we'll see you down the road here on Lionel Racing.